All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a geopolitical standoff that honestly reads like a straight-up international espionage thriller. But you guys, the stakes here, they couldn't be more real. We're diving deep into the massive 2026 crisis between the US and Iran. And specifically, we're going to break down exactly why Iran wants the sitting president of the United States dead. So let's just jump right in.
Okay, so I want you to picture this scene. It's July 8th, 2026. We're at the Ankara Esenboğa airport in Turkey. The sun is just blazing hot right there on the tarmac. President Donald Trump walks up the stairs to board Air Force One, waving to the cameras, the press corps, the White House staff. The engines are humming, the shades get drawn. Every single person watching totally thinks the president is on that plane. But he's not. He's actually hiding inside a catering truck. Yeah, you heard that right, a catering truck.
So here's how it actually went down. While the cameras were rolling on one side of the aircraft, a catering truck was quietly raised up to the door on the exact opposite side. The president slips out, gets lowered down, and is quickly driven across the tarmac. Then, that old Air Force One takes off for the UK, using the AF-1 call sign as a total decoy. It's carrying a bunch of journalists who have literally no clue the president isn't even on board. Meanwhile, the president is being smuggled onto a smaller C-32A military plane, flying under the call sign Reach 18. And look, this was absolutely not a drill. The Secret Service pulled off this flawless plane swap because of a highly specific, credible Iranian proxy missile threat aimed directly at the president's aircraft. So how in the world do we get to a place where the Secret Service is using catering trucks for escapes? Today, we're looking at that Ankara plane swap, tracing exactly why Iran wants revenge, breaking down the massive maximum pressure war, assessing the real intelligence threats, and finally looking at the endless cycle of retaliation pushing both nations right to the absolute brink. Section 1. Why Iran wants revenge. Tracing the origins. Let's look back to see where this all actually started. Because, it brings us to this core, just staggering question. Why would a sovereign nation actually try to assassinate the sitting president of the United States? I mean, that is a world-altering move, right? Well, to find the answer, we actually have to rewind the clock back exactly 6 years. This whole escalation, it really stems from one single event. January 3, 2020. A U.S. drone strike in Baghdad killed Qassem Soleimani. Now, he wasn't just anyone. He was the commander of Iran's Quds Force, basically the second most powerful man in Iran and the absolute architect of their entire regional strategy. After he was killed, Iran publicly vowed revenge. And that underlying rage, it just simmered. It simmered for years, until February 2025, when Trump returned to the White House and revived this intense maximum pressure campaign on Iran. Fast forward to March 2026, and a federal jury actually convicts a Pakistani national with alleged ties to Iran's Revolutionary Guard in a literal assassination plot against Trump. And that direct, escalating line is exactly what leads us straight to that crazy July 2026 plane swap in Ankara. And you gotta understand, these threats weren't just quiet, behind-closed-doors plotting. We're talking $3 million. $3 million. That was the actual bounty publicly offered by an Iranian lawmaker to anyone who kills Trump. I mean, during the funeral for Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, there were massive crowds literally chanting for Trump's assassination. So what started as just angry rhetorical threats, they very quickly morphed into highly publicized, tangible bounties right on the president's head.
Moving on to Section 2. The maximum pressure war. Economic squeeze to open conflict. Because this definitely wasn't just about personal vendettas.
You see, these assassination plots were running completely parallel to a massive geopolitical and economic war. Back in February 2025, a national security presidential memorandum directed U.S. agencies to just completely squeeze Iran with sanctions. The goal was to deny them any path to a nuclear weapon. And the impact was absolutely brutal. Iran's economy completely cratered. Inflation went through the roof. But here's the thing, Iran didn't fold. By early 2026, the U.S. was actually striking Iranian military infrastructure, and Iran pushed back hard, attacking commercial vessels. Basically, what was a tense standoff had exploded into an open conflict.
And to really put that into perspective, the crucial metric you need to know here is 20%. That is the amount of the world's global oil that passes right through the Strait of Hormuz. With this super vital waterway effectively shut down by the conflict, global oil prices just skyrocketed. Meaning, a political standoff halfway across the globe was suddenly hitting literally everyone right in the wallet at the local gas pump.
Which brings us to the next section, assessing the real threat, intelligence versus intent. Because
Look, when you have a situation as drastic as swapping the president's plane out for a catering truck, you really have to look closely at the actual intelligence that triggered it. And interestingly enough, the intelligence community wasn't completely unified on how imminent this threat actually was. On one hand, you had Israeli intelligence. They detected a highly specific operational proxy missile plot targeting the president's aircraft. Very alarming stuff. But on the flip side, the U.S. intelligence assessment hadn't independently verified that Israeli report. Some U.S. officials were taking a much more cautious stance, suggesting, hey, this intelligence might just reflect the raw intent of hardliners in Iran's leadership, rather than an actual locked-and-loaded operational plot. But honestly, to the Secret Service, that debate did not matter at all. The safety protocols were triggered, and they were getting the president out of there, period.
Because whether a specific missile was seconds away from launching or not, the broader hostile intent is just completely undisputed. I mean, just listen to the words of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi. He said, and I quote, "If Trump and Pompeo are not tried in a fair court, Muslims will take our martyrs' revenge." These threats, they're entirely public, and they are coming from the very top. Even Iran's newly appointed Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander, Ahmad Vahidi, has openly advocated for targeting Trump.
And that leads us to our final section, a cycle of retaliation, the perpetual loop. This constant barrage of public threats has taken what was already a major diplomatic crisis and basically devolved it into a self-sustaining loop of extreme personal vengeance. The mechanics of this loop are dangerously simple. Step 1, Iran threatens the U.S. president, demanding revenge for Soleimani. Step 2, the president responds by threatening Iran with massive military retaliation, openly calling their leadership scum. Step 3, Iran turns right around and uses that exact U.S. rhetoric to justify escalating their own threats even further. So what we have is a geopolitical war that has become deeply, deeply personal, and the cycle just keeps spinning faster and faster.
And, the rhetoric from the U.S. side is just as severe. On August 2, 2026, Trump posted on Truth Social, stating that 1,000 missiles are locked and loaded and aimed at the Islamic Republic of Iran if they acted on their assassination threats against him. He made it very clear that the U.S. military was ready and willing to completely decimate the area.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, by August 2026, the current standoff is looking incredibly bleak. The war is officially entering its 6th month. That June Memorandum of Understanding, which was supposed to be a starting point for negotiations, it's entirely collapsed. And to make matters even worse for U.S. security, the highly classified details of that Ankara plane swap, the catering truck, the decoys, the whole shebang, it all leaked to the Washington Post. Now, the DOJ is actively investigating those illegal leaks because they're terrified it compromises future protective operations.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer, leaving us all in a very, very tense reality. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed, the oil still isn't flowing, and this massive cycle of threats? It's literally just a daily routine now. Somewhere in Tehran, hardliners are still actively thinking about revenge. Meanwhile, the U.S. military has 1,000 missiles ready to fly at a moment's notice. The entire world is watching, just holding its breath. So the final question we really have to ask ourselves is, who will act